Hey everyone! Today is going to be a bit different to my normal videos because today I'm going to be doing a Tales from the Alternate Universe video. These videos are basically going to be stories about alternate universes and endings in Wings of Fire. In today's tale, Peril is growing up with the Dragonets of Destiny instead of Glory. This story was really fun to write, and I think I came up with a pretty good way Peril could have stayed with her mother. Also, quick note, Sky is named Ember, so don't be confused about that. And without further ado, let's get started with the story. Kestrel glared at Scarlet and the 4 guards that were standing beside her, ready to attack. "Listen," Scarlet hissed. "I know I shouldn't do this, but I'll let you go." Kestrel stepped back in surprise, but she knew that wasn't true. "If," there it was, "you kill one of your tiny monsters." "What?" Kestrel snarled. "It's either that, or I take you all." Kestrel stared down at the Dragonets. The one without fire would be no use to her in the real world, but the one with too much, that one could fend for itself. So she picked up the one without fire. It squealed in protest as she dunked the thing into the river, the squeals getting quickly cut off. The Dragonet washed down the flowing river, and Kestrel watched it go. Scarlet flicked her tail, and one of her guards flew off, but Kestrel took no note of him. Scarlet laughed. "Just kidding. Guards, get her." Kestrel whirled and grabbed her small dragonet and flew. The dragonet instantly burned her talons, but she just let it happen, gritting her teeth as she flew as fast as she could. The small dragonet reached towards her, but Kestrel turned just in time not to be burned, and blasted the guards in the face with fire, causing them to tumble out of the sky, buying her some time. As she flew, she situated the dragonet in her talons. She found her wings weren't as hot as the rest of her scales, so she held on to her wings despite the dragonet's squeaks of pain. She dashed for the peaks, hoping that she could get lost in them and never see Scarlet or any of the Sky Kingdom again. Peril was lying in one of the caves, carving out one of her favorite stories into a stone tablet. The story of a skywing as bright as the sun, who went around Peria and gave dragons warmth and fire. Peril hoped she could be like that dragon one day. While she was carving the last letter into the story, she heard her mother's furious roar. "What do you mean when you say we don't have a skywing?" she roared. Then a softer, more subdued voice. "They were all destroyed. I'm sorry." "How? Scarlet's evil, sure, but would she kill unborn dragonets?" she hissed. Well, what?" "I saw it happen." "And you didn't stop it?" "I couldn't. Scarlet had a crowd." "How did it happen, Webbs?" "She forced a dragonet with no fire to do it." Kestrel fell silent. "Go on," she said softly but sternly. "She attached a ball of tinder to his talons and lit them on fire. It gave him vicious burns, and she made him burn each egg to the ground before dunking the dragonet's talons into water and taking him away. That's when I ran." Kestrel hissed. "Then I guess we don't have a skywing." "We don't?" Webbs asked. "What do you mean?" Kestrel eyed him, with a confused look on her face. Peril can be our skywing." Peril wished she could touch other dragons. It was so boring sitting around and watching her friends play games and wrestle, and she just sat there. It was so lame. Sure, she could touch clay, as she found out when she was younger, but she still couldn't play the games that involved anyone else. Something she could do, though, is carve drawings or stories into stone tablets. Sometimes she would get Starflight to read her the stories while she carved it into the stone. That was one of the few things she could do with her friends. The other was that Tsunami and her could play games under the water. Underwater she wasn't too hot, so other dragons could touch her, not for too long though. But that was pretty much it. She didn't know if staring at clay unintentionally for way too long counted as an activity. Right now she was sitting by the river, carving a drawing of her mother into a rock. She was carving her mother's grumpy expression when she heard Talon steps behind her. Clay walked up, smiling at her and lying down. "What are you carving this time?" he asked. "My mother, looking grumpy." "Sounds about right," he smiled. Peril smothered giggles. Clay had this thing about him that always made her laugh or smile or be generally happy. Clay and her started chatting happily, but their conversation was interrupted by a large crashing noise from the entrance cave. Clay looked at Peril, and they both stood up to dash to the front of the cave. When they got there, they saw the other dragonettes coming in from different ways, and their guardians were already there, and there was a huge Nightwing. He glowered down at them. "Is this them?" he asked, judgment plastering his face. Dune opened his mouth to answer, but Tsunami beat him to it. "Yeah, it's us. Who else would it be?" Tsunami hissed, rolling her eyes. Unimpressive. Peril shrunk down at that. She knew it was for all of them, but she hated being criticized. The Nightwing turned his head to look at her and squinted. "Why are you so bright?" She stammered. The Nightwing reached down to touch her wing, but Peril flinched back. "Don't!" she yelled. The Nightwing hissed and did it anyway. Pain seared through her wing as he nudged it forcefully, and apparently pain went up his talon because he screamed in shock. Peril clutched her wing protectively. She never knew why, but her wings always hurt. She could still fly, but it was painful. The Nightwing growled, then turned. "I'm coming back tomorrow." He paused, then leaned down and whispered into Kestrel's ear. "And I don't want to see the flame scales when I'm back." Then he flew off. Kestrel flinched and looked at Peril. They all stood in the room for a while, then Kestrel broke the silence. "We need to get you out of here," she declared. They all looked confused. "What? But we still need more time," Starflight stammered. "No, there is no time," Kestrel hissed through her teeth. "Mother," Peril tried, but Kestrel cut her off. "No! It's you he wants dead, and I'm not going to let that happen." Peril stepped back in shock. "Me? Why?" she asked. "I don't know, but it doesn't matter," Kestrel replied, shutting her eyes. Peril looked at her friends. Starflight was cowering, Sunny was shocked, Clay was frozen in place, and Tsunami was lashing her tail back and forth angrily. "We're just gonna let them go?" Webbs asked anxiously. "What other choice do we have?" Kestrel snapped. She looked at the dragonettes. "Come on, let's get you out of here." Peril was wobbling at the back of the group as they flew. She was a skywing, sure, but her painful wings caused her flying to be slower and less graceful. They were flying in a random direction, not exactly sure on where they were going. Peril was just focusing on staying aloft. She squinted at the horizon, trying to figure out what was over there, when something slammed into her, and then screamed. She swirled towards the ground, trying to peel the screaming dragon off of her. She heard a few more shouts from her friends. Once she got the dragon off of her, she watched the burning dragon fall to the ground and land with a loud crash. Peril stared in shock, then looked up at her friends, who were currently wrestling with more dragons. "Wait! Stop!" she shouted, but it was too late. The guards had already knocked out her friends and placed them into sacks. One of them started towards her, but stopped when he saw the charred dragon below them. They suddenly shot away with her friends in their talons. Peril silently followed the dragons, which was pretty hard considering she set a lot of plants and things on fire. When the guards landed, they were in the Sky Kingdom. Peril gawked at the large stone spires and the homes carved into the mountains. The guards landed over a peak, so she couldn't see them anymore. Peril climbed over the mountains, and when she reached the top, she saw an arena with a fight currently happening. Looking further, she saw the Queen of the Skywings, overseeing the fight with a nasty grin on her face. And next to her, she saw a small dragon that looked to be about the same age as Peril, sitting next to the Queen with a solemn expression on his face. He had scars all around his talons and arms. Peril wondered what those were from. Suddenly, a large cheer erupted from the crowd, and Peril saw that one of the dragons had won the fight. She watched even longer, and saw some dragons take the corpse and the other dragon away, and some other dragons bring out 4 sacks. Peril watched them intently as the guards took a Seawing, Mudwing, Sandwing, and a Nightwing out of the sacks. What do we have here?" the Queen asked, her tongue flicking in and out. "You all look like you could be someone, but where's the Skywing?" Peril didn't think after that. She flew up towards the arena and landed right in front of the Queen. "Let them go!" she cried. The other dragon next to her looked up, and a little flicker of recognition went through her. Scarlet tried to push her away with one talon and screamed at the contact. What in the moons? Wait a minute. You're Kestrel's daughter, aren't you? I've been wondering where you all have been. A bloody death has been scheduled for your mother. Before Peril could speak, the dragon next to her spoke up. You're my sister? He asked abruptly. What? Peril stammered. Scarlet hissed. I've told you that Kestrel is not your mother. I am. I don't believe you. No mother would treat their dragon how you treat me, Scarlet, the dragon growled. Scarlet suddenly slammed her talons down on the other dragon's face, and Peril didn't think about what she was about to do. She streaked her fiery talons over Scarlet's face, melting and deforming it instantly, and continued down her neck. The queen toppled towards the ground, howling. All the guards in the arena shot into the air and flew as fast as they could away. And the crowds went into an uproar, fleeing in any direction they could go. A few brave guards shot over to Scarlet and grabbed her before fleeing. Peril looked around at her shocked, apparently, brother and her friends, all staring at her in horror. She looked at Clay, and he looked disappointed and horrified. She flinched. She never wanted to scare anyone. She just wanted to help. Peril looked over at the dragon next to her and swiped her talons across the chain in its neck. So, you're my brother, huh? Who are you? She asked. Ember, what about you? Peril. She looked at him. He was skinny and small. How long have you been here? As long as I can remember, he replied. And those scars? I don't really remember. She flicked her tail to get him to follow, and flew down to her friends, to unbind them all carefully. They all lifted off, with all her friends asking questions to Ember. She flew over to Clay. He looked at her, but didn't say anything. They were silent for a while until Peril finally spoke. I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt her too bad. I was mad, and I was scared, and I didn't want her to hurt you, she blurted. Clay gave her a timid little smile. It's all right. I'm sorry. I've never seen you do anything like that before, he said. Well, it might come in handy when we meet all the princesses. Peril grinned. Yeah, it might. He smiled at her. All of the now 6 dragonettes headed off to fulfill their big, bad destiny. And that's where we'll end this story. I know the ending is a bit abrupt, but I didn't really know what else I would add. Quick side note, I absolutely love the piece of art I drew in this video. For some reason, it just makes me so happy. What do you think would have happened if Peril lived with the Dragonettes of Destiny? I'd love to hear about it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and drop a like or comment on this video. If you like my art, be sure to check out my DeviantArt or my commissions, both of which have their links in the description. I hope you all liked this video, and I hope you all have a great day.